Comment? I don't think, no, we have to sign in, but nothing? Okay.
Okay, as I'm getting this finalized, you have it, all right, we are ready to rock now. You have a couple of handouts on your seat next to you. One is the superintendent's recommendation, and on the back side of that are potential motion based upon recommendation, which can be adjusted based upon the conversation. The other item that you have is a printout of the proposed FY20 budget. Those are the only items that I printed on paper. On the agenda, you have access to the FY19 soft numbers of 10-year health life safety study, which is included in the 5-year capital improvement plan and all of that. My thought is that we just preview recommendations. We walk through the 5-year capital improvement plan, walk through the levy, walk through the budget, and finalize recommendations. Good. Okay, recommendations. Recommendation number 1, I recommend that this committee, the Finance Committee, sends the 5-year capital improvement plan to the Facilities Committee with the following financial guidance and budgetary constraints. Schedule health life safety projects during summers of 2020 and 2021. That's congruent with what the board and the Facilities Committee has already discussed. Schedule alternate revenue projects using an FY20 budget of $330,000 and a $30,000 annual budget for each following year. And schedule building fund projects using a $50,000 annual budget. Second recommendation is to recommend to the board that they issue $2.5 million in health life safety bonds this fall for completion of work listed in our 10-year health life safety study. Third recommendation is to authorize the Facilities Committee to forward the 5-year capital improvement plan to the full board for approval upon completion of their work. The thought behind that is letting the Facilities Committee know, hey, here are the parameters that we set from a financial standpoint. You do your work, and then just send it on to the board as long as it fits those parameters. Otherwise, it will come back to this committee to discuss. That plan also includes tentative school tax levies for the 5 years to support the capital improvement project. Recommendation number 4, I recommend that this committee recommends the tentative FY20 budget for board approval. And then number 5, recommend that this committee recommends the tentative 2019 school tax levy for board approval. Typically, we've done the budget in August and September and the levy in November and December. I propose that we do them both at the same time this year. Approve them all, have both hearings, approve both tentative on Monday night, hold both hearings before the regular meeting in September, so they will both be on display for the required 30 days, and then approve both of them at the September meeting, and then just file all that stuff at the county clerk's office at the same time.
Why has it always been November?
Well, typically you wait until you have
The numbers from
you have refined EAV, at least to the best of the county's ability. What I found, of course, there's been some turbulence a little bit, but there hasn't been much of an adjustment to the numbers in November, December from August. Now, there's always been some adjustment to the numbers from December to April, May, but for the most part, the numbers that they give us to create our budget are the same numbers that they give us to create our levy. There's not that much fluctuation.
So we would have a number to work with in August that would.
Yeah. I've got a number for you now. And that's one of the most difficult things. It's the thing I've had the hardest time predicting, is what our overall EAV is going to be. Because it's been all over the place.
What's EAV?
EAV is the equalized assessed valuation of all the property within the school district.
Okay.
So what they do, like they take, so your EAV for your house, let's say your house is worth, we'll make it easy, say it's worth a house and property, which is probably worth more with the property check, $150,000. So when they equalize that valuation, if it's worth $150,000 resale, then the EAV for that land is 33%, so it's like $50,000. So you get taxed on that $50,000 at whatever rate the school ends up setting.
And that's what I had for that.
Yeah. So what we do is the levy just requests an amount of money. We need whatever $3 million to run the school, and then that's divvied up amongst all the property owners based upon the percentage of the value available. It's a very
That's a good question.
keep asking questions on that too, because this is it's complex stuff, and I have to stare at it and study it in order to be able to make sense of it too. For that.
These are good things to know when you become a homeowner
Absolutely.
and doing just your taxes.
Okay. Any questions or concerns or anything with the recommendation so far? Dig into the 5-year capital improvement plan. And I think I'll just hit this. I'll just try and zero down. I've got a few slides. I'm just breaking it into a few categories, and then we'll hit the entire plan. As far as capital improvement goes, we've separated it into the 3 categories by which they would be funded. So the architects submitted our 10-year health life safety report to the state I think it was last fall, and got approved in the spring. Which the architect estimates overall is about $2.8 million worth of work. That work has to be completed over a period of 5 years. That's HVAC. The HVAC and the roof are the 2 big items there, and then the handicap accessibility items.
I felt like HVAC was more personal.
Yeah. These are the items that are on that report. And tentatively, this is how we've planned them out for FY21 and FY22. So the projects would really start next summer, but we wouldn't pay any of the contractors for the work until after July 1st. So they would go on not FY20 budget, but the FY21 and FY22 budget. The green items are the ones that I wanted to draw attention to, because those are really the financial constraints that the facilities committee would be under. With the health life safety study items, there's really no wiggle room there. Those have to be completed. And thus far, every conversation we've had as a board, as a finance committee, or as a facilities committee, is to get those done in the order in which they're listed up there. And they include next year a little bit of pavement. So next summer of 2020, a little bit of pavement and a lot of HVAC. So both boilers will be defunct to start next school year. We would have AC and a lot better climate control of the heat in each and every classroom.
Are they going to be individually?
That we haven't, the architect is going to provide some more information on whether or not we do go with individual units or zones. So far, all the conversation has been around individual units for each individual classroom, rooftop units. But I really want them to give us information that supports that recommendation. You know, that's not my line of work, but I'm not convinced right now that individual units are better than zones. I know zones can be harder to control. Maybe they're more economical. I don't know. There's a lot of pros and cons to that. So. But the way it was submitted, the estimate was based upon individual units.
And there are some things missing.
Yeah, there's rows.
I was gonna say up above, okay, so I just wanna make sure that, yeah, I was gonna say the security and the
Am I missing something?
boiler.
Just the 1 million.
Yeah, this is the
$1 million
boiler.
Yeah.
40, because yeah, 495, yeah.
Okay, let me bounce out of this thing and get
Sorry.
that plan. Yeah, no, sorry about that.
Just screenshot this and
It is not.
So we're getting air conditioning?
That's the plan.
I was gonna say.
Picked up on that, didn't you? Yeah, so this is where the screenshot was from. Okay. Now to support that, these are the so the architect, what I wanted to make sure that I captured was the architect estimates about $2.8 million worth of work. A $2.5 million bond issue with the annual health, life safety levy over the course of this 5 years will give us pretty much $2.8 million. So that's my recommendation is the $2.5 million bond issue. What that does is it adds money to the levy, because with the health, life, safety bond, that however much your payment is every year, the county clerk automatically puts that amount on your levy. You don't have control over, you can't raise it, you can't lower it. Because the state has only approved these items for health, life, safety funding, so the county clerk makes sure that those items are all funded, so that they're taken care of, no more, no less. What this box shows is basically for every $10,000 we levy, it equals about a penny in school tax rate, because we're close to $100 million in EAV. What I tried to do within these boxes is show tentative interest costs for the life of the bond, which would be about $363,000 to finance the project. If it's a $2.5 million bond held out over 5.5 years, the annual payment would be $575,000. Now, what that would do to the levy, anticipate a 2% projected increase in total EAV would put our EAV at $92.4 million. That would, with a $575,000 bond payment, that would equate to about 62 cents in actual rate if we do that from property owner. That would put our overall rate would be projected at $4.80. And I would suggest that none of these change, that this is our tentative tax levy. This is what I would propose as our tentative tax levy. And the only thing that could fluctuate would be the rates based upon overall EAV. The values would not. Local school tax rates this year, you can see we're at $4.14. Knoxville and Dunlap are under $4.50. You can see where everyone else lands. That levy, with the bond payment included, would put us at $4.80, which everything stays the same, which it won't. Everybody fluctuates from year to year. It puts us right around the top 5, I would guess, overall rate for the next 5 years. And then at the end of those 5 years, so in the 5th year, again, projecting for 2% EAV growth in each of those years will put us right at 100 million EAV, which would be our last bond payment, $575,000. It would cost taxpayers 57 cents per $100 EAV, which would put our overall rate at $4.89.
Should levy request flat there?
Yeah.
Is there any cost increase? explain that
Yeah.
to me, but like, is that like, because that's not
These-
flat.
So what I did so it's flat with bond and interest because that payment would stay the same. In any education or personnel related fund, I increased it by 3% every year. Because our raises are 2.75%. Costs of other items have a tendency to fluctuate between 2 and maybe 4 or 5% as far as increases go. For non-personnel or education related funds, increase them by 2% each year. So tort fund, I increased it by 2% each year. Transportation, building, 2% each year. But in all of the personnel related funds, raising 3% each year. So that's health, life safety, and we'll go to the full spreadsheet in a little bit. That's the health, life safety approach. As far as alternate revenue projects go, we have a $300,000 bond proceeds that were deposited July 1st, so that will be in this fiscal year in the FY20 budget. We have about $35,000 every year in penny sales tax outside of what we need to pay back our alternate revenue bonds.
So it's extra.
It's extra.
Say that again, how much is the penny sales tax?
Penny sales tax, we have about $35,000 every year above and beyond what it takes to pay our alternate revenue bond.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I recommend is we earmark $30,000. We budget $30,000 or send that $30,000 budget to the facilities committee for annual projects.
And there's no indication that that's gonna go away or it'll stay, okay.
So that's basically, and these are the projects. So what the facilities committee would then do would be to add or delete items on the list and move them into whatever fiscal year. And they may decide, you know what, we'd rather do this project in FY23 and have $90,000 for this project rather than 30 every year. And they may not. And I want to tackle these projects piece by piece. And building fund finances. So the items that are on this list, we levy about $50,000 for projects, whether it be annually or save that money for larger projects. Again, I'd leave that to the facilities committee with the knowledge that they have $50,000 to utilize each fiscal year.
In addition, then the 30,000 on top of that, so.
Yeah. What we have to be careful of with the project, any project on the alternate revenue project plan have to be capital improvement projects.
There's only certain things you can do that money for, right?
So landscaping gets a little iffy if you can use capital improvement money for landscaping. There's other items on there, exterior painting, but maintenance truck replacement. I don't know if building vehicle is considered capital improvement or not. It would probably be a stretch.
Doubtful.
Okay, so that's that. And all of these things are in the 5-year capital improvement plan. So the full, those are just screenshots of the full. I have 2 boxes in there. But yeah, this was the next thing I wanted to show you. Okay, so if you look at, let me bounce back real quick. If you look at a $2.5 million life safety bond over the course of 5.5 years, financing will cost, again, approximately $363,000. Because this was one of the things we discussed as a facilities committee and then as a full board also. What's most beneficial from a timing standpoint. Studies indicate that construction costs increase between 3 and 5% annually. 3 on the low side, 5 on the high side, so typically it's more than 3%. If construction costs increase 3% over the course of the next 5 years, these projects, the health life safety projects, would cost an extra $321,000. If the construction costs increase 5% over the course of the next 5 years, these projects would increase in cost $550,000. So I think what I've always wrestled with is when do you levy and save for projects versus borrow and complete projects. I think the math indicates that we will be money ahead by borrowing money and completing these projects now rather than levying for these projects and doing them in year 4 and year 5.
Where you got that increase.
Where the construction costs could increase less and could increase more. But I think the math supports that at the worst, it would be about $50,000 more expensive to borrow the money now and do the projects than it would to complete them now and pay them off over the course of 5 years.
I think to just consistency to right, but it would have more volatility in the rate and in the finances if you waited and did it right.
I think so too, yeah. And I think the financial market right now, and I don't know if they ever did the Fed drop rates today. And it's the first time they've dropped since 2008. The odds of them dropping again in the next 5 years are probably extremely low. So we're probably at the lowest as far as interest rate goes.
The market was built in 50 basis points and it dropped a quarter. What I read briefly.
I followed more important things like the Yankee score. I did see that was.
But we're not having any clue. The Yankees played today.
Yankees won.
So, you go ahead. So is that interest rate, is that locked in or?
That's an estimate. 4% is an estimate based upon numbers we got from First Mid-State last spring.
Okay.
When we were shopping for the alternate revenue, I asked them for figures on the
I
bond
don't think
issue.
much of that is going to change.
You don't think so this fall?
Drastically. The bond rates.
Well, what I think we will do, what I think is in the best interest of the district to do, is if the board does approve the issuance of $2.5 million in health life safety bonds, is we shop and we try and get the best rate for the district.
I don't know that there's that many places. I was visiting with Dr. Wagner on Friday
I've got
about
3
some
bonds.
things. Do you talk to Berardi?
I don't. Farmington just did. Farmington shopped around and it was First Mid-State. I think it was the firm that you just mentioned there. They Chicago firm.
I don't know where he's from. I see his email every day, but I don't ever pay attention to where it comes
I'm
from.
thinking he's
He's kind of local. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he himself has been in Peoria, at least when he stopped out. I assumed he was in
I
Peoria.
think that's who Farmington ended up going with. Because I think he's a Monmouth College. I'm not sure.
He might be. That might be why I think he's a local guy.
Yeah.
He's thinking that Berardi.
But that's what I'd like to do is find at least 3 firms to shop to. Mid-State, has been good to us. I don't have complaints with
Have
them.
you talked to more community bank? They seem to have some type of a program. I don't know if it's a good deal or not,
Yeah.
but it sounds like that they have something that they're doing.
So question, how do you feel, so I don't want to jump ahead, but, 5 years from now, this is all great, we're done with this. Well, then there's going to be the next project, the next thing that needs to be fixed, the next thing, whatever. So are we better off padding a little bit, even starting now, just a little, I'm not talking like a ton, just a little, in preparation for that next project, instead of waiting and then issuing again You know what I mean? Like,
I
is it
do.
yours building up
It
the,
has never been this board's.
well, I know, I'm just
Philosophy?
I know, yeah.
yes.
Never been
Right.
the board's, the school district philosophy.
I'm
No betting.
hopeful on two fronts. I'm optimistic on two fronts. So far, our architect, for the most part, his estimates have always been high.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that bids will come in better than what he's projected. I'm also hopeful that ISD will have some more school maintenance grants. In the last life safety cycle, we were able to secure 3 $50,000 matching grants, so that was $150,000. If we can secure at least just one of those, we have an additional $50,000 to play with. And any health life safety money that we borrow would sit in health life safety for any items that get attached to our study, either through an amendment or through the next 10-year cycle. So they have to relate to health and life safety
To use that money.
to use that money. And within the next, knock on wood, within the next, the latter 7 years of this 10-year study, I don't anticipate a lot. I really
I
don't.
mean, all of these things have been on the plate for years.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
The big ticket items that are nowhere on the list so far have to do with parking lots.
Parking lots, yeah, exactly. That was the one thing that was kind of in the back of my head.
And that, I really do think, is our next alternate revenue bond cycle. If we do something with the parking lot. Because we'll have a lot of the concrete taken care of. With the sidewalks and stuff we have to put in for accessibility. We'll have a lot of the
And then you want to
structure.
get rid of the gravel so the concrete lasts, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just a little thing, yeah.
Could you also go back to the school districts in our area?
Yep.
I just want to look at that again. Oh, you did, okay. I figured I would put my glasses on. Okay, so Elmwood just had huge construction, Princeville just had huge construction. Our county, not really. Town. I mean, so you're looking at high construction zone.
Yeah.
So their tax rates may go down, maybe.
When
You don't
when
think so?
they pay bonds off.
Yeah, I don't know how long that will be.
It depends on every district's approach.
Okay.
A lot of times,
Elmwood.
what some districts do, I'll use A-Town Farmington as examples. I haven't studied this in depth, but my understanding of what those communities do is when some bonds go off, they reissue for other work that needs to take place in their district.
Keeping it,
It's sort of
Okay.
forever.
okay.
Because they've got, Farmington is in kind of their first cycle of renovation after their new building. Their new buildings can be 10, 15 years old, I think. And A-Town's got 3 buildings that have some age to them. So it's just a continuous cycle, and their goal, and I think everyone's goal for the most part, is to try and maintain a consistent rate for the taxpayers. So there's not a big jump from one year to the next. We've historically here, and in good, bad, or otherwise, we've borrowed the money, done what we needed to do, and then took it off the tax roll and went back down. So we do have fluctuation up in that first year, and then just like we did when the building was paid off, and then that tax rate went back down. And we haven't issued any health life safety bonds since 81.
People are gonna, that's what this, I think, is gonna be. It's gonna be the thing that shows up in the paper. It's gonna be the thing that people look at, you know, and if, yeah.
Well, we can always tie it to the health, life, safety, that this is,
This is directly what it's for.
yes, that these are things that have to be done. It's not that we're, just using money foolishly.
I think that's the major point, is we always point right back to the list. It's security, it's HVAC, it's pavement, it's roofing. Those are your big ticket items. Yeah, nobody really notices it unless it leaks. But it has leaked before. The light of the building.
Brett used to mention.
All right, let me punch around on here. Any other items you want to explore a conversation around the potential projects in those three categories? This chart, I just had a little snippet of it on one of those slides. Just shows the amount of money available over that 5-year period for health and life safety work, and the amount of money available for non-health life safety work, which is the annual building fund allotment and the capital improvement fund allotment. I didn't add that $300,000 to this in this table, just because that money is for the most part accounted for in the two bigger projects that we did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the health life safety levy revenue, so is that the one that you were talking about was already built in, or that's built into the, where does that come from?
We have control over that one. We don't have control over the bond. Once the bond is issued, we don't have control over the $575,000 payment. It's just locked in. The county clerk adds that to whatever you turn into them.
They go through the bond. If you don't have it in there, they add it.
So that's the bond, how about the health life safety?
The other health life
That's
safety money.
about $50,000 a year.
Yeah. We can levy up to a nickel in that fund every year.
Okay.
And we started last year. The 2018 levy, we levied a nickel.
Okay, so it's already incorporated in, and if we keep it at a nickel, then we'll, okay.
If I were looking back in hindsight, I wish I would have recommended we had that nickel in there when we didn't have a bunch of projects. Because then we wouldn't have had to borrow as much
They did the
money.
same thing.
Yeah,
I don't think we did with the on the board either.
never did that.
You didn't levy it, you didn't need it.
Didn't levy if you didn't. And you didn't need levy if you didn't need it right now.
Right. And we
So if you look, I think you can see, if you look at my formula, up in the formula bar, Kathy, you can see that that's just I'm adding 3% to the ed fund. That stays $575,000, and then 2% to the building fund, 3% to IMRF, 2% to transportation, 2% to fire and safety. And that's really just trying to keep up to that nickel, because we're projecting 2% EAV growth every year, which Molly knows is equalized assessed valuation.
Her dad's probably spending right now.
2% to special ed, 2% to TOR, and 3% to social security. And I just kept that the same each and every year, projecting 2% EAV increase each and every year. There have been years where we've had, where our EAV has jumped 14%. There have been years where our EAV has dropped, like this last cycle has dropped 1.5%. Just trying to be conservative, trying to be consistent. Okay, so those are the tax levies. That's the 5-year capital improvement plan. You guys want to walk through the budget? And we can hard paper this. The front page shows projected fund balances based upon the FY19 soft numbers. So in each fund, And it's separated by fund, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Fund 70 is a working cash fund that we haven't used. Fund 80, Fund 90, and then all funds combined. The column all the way to the left is the beginning balance based upon FY19 soft numbers. So that could change a little bit after the audit comes in. In the last few years, it hasn't. Marty's done a real good job of remaining consistent there.
This is the end of June,
Yep, this
Numbers.
is June 30th numbers.
so July 1.
And remember that a good portion of our tax money came in late. So it'll show as revenue on this year's budget, which is why our fund balances are a little bit low to start with, and why we have a $4.3 million surplus, because we have extra tax money coming in this year to compensate for the tax money we didn't get last year.
Is there any indication that will happen again? Or
Well, the tax bills didn't go out till May.
or do you think it'll be consistent next year?
Well, it should be.
I hope so, but I don't know. I mean, I hope it goes back to the way it always has been. And that's what I budgeted for, us getting early tax money. Typically, we got 57.5% of our levy before June 30th. Kind of the ballpark. So that's what I budgeted for that. So if you look at the beginning balance, the revenue and the expenditure cells are taken straight from the budget, the spreadsheet that follows the cover page. And then the surplus or deficit is just calculated based upon that. Project a surplus in every fund except for transportation, which transportation has been one of our strongest funds. Ed and transportation has been very strong. And then end balances you can see all the way out on the right-hand column. End balance for all funds projects to be almost $5.8 million. Keep in mind that takes into account a $2.5 million health life safety bond that will not have been spent on projects yet. So realistically, with that money already allocated, you can say that our end fund balance is more like 3.2. Which again is strong. Now from a financial profile, typically we get a high score. Most times we get a 4.0. We will not this year because that money came in late, that tax money came in late. In FY20, we should end up with a much higher score, if not perfect. Some of it depends upon, we're right on the edge. If we borrow $2.5 million, we'll be right on the edge of perfect score. But a lot of it depends upon what the EAV ends up being. So if you look, according to this year's EAV, which is $90,606,000, in order to maintain a perfect score in that, your debt remaining ratio, we could only issue $2.2 million in health life safety bonds. To earn a 3 in that column, we could issue up to $5.3 million in health life safety bonds. So you can play with the EAV number, and I'll just put it at 94 and see what that does. And we're still more than likely, I'm going to do that. More than likely, we will end up with a 3 on our financial profile for 1 year in this area until we pay that first bond payment in December of 2020. And then we would be back at a perfect score in this area.
Can you put a dollar figure on the amount of taxes we didn't get? I don't think so. Off the top of my head. What was the
I'd have to look. We can dig into the percentages as we get through here.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the dollar amount that we were short by not receiving the second round of?
Like how much revenue is
Yeah.
pushed over.
Yep. So because I feel like, I'd have a better understanding of something to
Yeah.
review that number.
Yeah. Okay, budgetary approach. I'm budgeting for an 8% health insurance increase. I hope it comes in significantly lower than that. Hopefully we get accepted to CIE, and then our costs are managed from year to year.
And when do you find out about that?
I think October 1st is our renewal, if I remember right. Yeah, so we should find out about the end of this month.
You need anybody to make phone calls, help them.
And if that does go through, then are you going out to?
Then our agent Curtis goes shopping out for us.
Got it. Good.
Budgetary approach number 2, issue $2.5 million in health life safety bonds. Number 3, plan for implementation of the 5-year capital improvement plan. Number 4, construct 5 years of tentative tax levies to support the plan. And number 5, purchase our next used vehicle in the fleet management. Okay, so if we go through and stop me if I go too fast and there's an area that you want to discuss. On page 1, what you'll see in the very top line, if you look all the way out at the formula values column, all the way to the right, highlighted in purple, that $2.9,794 is what I propose we levy for in the ed fund. So we'll click on this and make sure we match. Yeah, if you look on our levy, the tentative levy request is $2,900,794. Project, we receive 57.5% of that prior to June 30th, which would create $1.667 million in revenue. Now the value below, the 2.816305, that's what we levied in 2018. What we received, if you look at the soft numbers from from FY19, we only received 1.19 million of that. So we had 2.4 million remaining to collect. So typically when we get 56.5%, we got about 14%. So if you wanted to do the math between those, you know what I'm saying,
56
Kathy?
minus 14, or 42%?
Would be the difference. What we normally get to do. I could look back in. We talked about that at July board meeting, didn't we?
Because it says current year levy is 57.5.
I want to say we were $2.1 million short. That's not based upon objective fact. That's just what I'm recollecting. I can look back. So for all of our levy, these are our revenue. This is the revenue side of the budget right now. For all of our levy lines, there are formula values out to the right. It should match what the tentative levy request is in the 5-year capital improvement plan. And you can see all those percentages are pretty much the same. So on this page, you've got your levy revenue and you've got your other local revenue, lunch revenue, athletic admissions, so on and so forth. Private donations will be in the last year of our Project Lead the Way grant, so that's listed there. The bottom third of the page is revenue from the state. Typically, I budget $150,000 in general state aid. The last 2 years, we've received over $200,000. I'm still a little bit cautious, so we'll budget $175,000 this year is what I would recommend. And then we've got some vocational grants, some ag grants. There we may get, the last 2 years, we've gotten more ag grant money than what we've projected. Driver education, preschool, we're pretty sure we're going to get $105,000 again this year. And that's huge thanks to the ROE on that. They do a tremendous amount of work. They just redid Carrie's classroom
to match Katie's also. So I don't know how much in value that is, but it's a lot. It's top of the line equipment and materials.
That's that. The next section, your 10-4s are federal funds, revenue from the federal government. Those are pretty solid. The only thing we can't predict entirely is spring reduced lunch revenue. And that's the end of the revenue for Fund 10, which is the education fund. Bottom third of the page starts the building fund. You can see the levy there again. We deposit our corporate replacement taxes into our building fund. So we utilize that for building projects. And that's pretty much all we get in revenue. Fund 30 is bond and interest. Fund 40, transportation. Fund 50 is IMRS, Social Security.
Back with transportation real quick, there isn't anything coming down from the state. I mean, we always used to get that scare tactic that there's gonna be
They're going to
something.
get very categorical.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not as of right now, but it's always a conversation.
okay.
The way I feel about it right now with the political players that are currently in place, if they do, it'll be prorated over time. They won't do that to, at least that's what I would anticipate. They won't do that to everybody all at once. Fund 60 is basically penny sales tax, capital improvement. You can see you budget $35,000 there, and the rest of it went into bond and interest fund, Fund 30. Fund 70, in the middle of page 4, is working cash. We haven't done anything with working cash since I've been here anyway. I don't think there was previously. Fund 80 is tort, and Fund 90 is health and life safety. And you can see towards the end of health and life safety, there's $2.5 million in revenue listed as principal on bonds received. Towards the bottom, right on page 4, that's the box that we use to project health insurance costs. And then as we go through the expense side, I just put the number of people per line, and then once we get better information, we can update that number and it'll calculate. Yeah, that's the one, it's a big uncertainty.
So last year, we had what, 3% increase?
Sounds about right. We had to switch to do it.
We didn't really lose a lot. Like,
The one year we saved,
We saved about $250,000 one year.
Yeah.
When we switched.
That was the first switch to Aetna, I think was that.
That was the switch to United from Blue Cross.
okay, and then this next year we switched to Aetna, and that was only a 3%.
Right.
And then we stayed with Aetna, was that only 3%?
No, this is our first year of that.
It's our second year of Aetna.
Is it?
Yep,
Sure.
I hate it, sorry. That's why I said it,
Yeah.
if you need anybody to call, yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is our second year.
So know that hopefully we get accepted to the CIE, and if we don't this year, eventually I hope we will. Central Illinois Educators Health Group or whatever. They put theirs. It's a policy that contains employees from a huge amount of school districts. They shop every year. So although they're Blue Cross Blue Shield now, they might be United next year. They might be Aetna the following year.
because they shop every year. But it's a huge policy, so there's less volatility.
Right, there's less, yeah, that's what makes it less fluctuation, so, okay. But anyway, so I was just, yeah. If the last 2 years have been a 3% increase, I'm trying to think of the change in our staff.
Demographics.
Yeah, if there's anything that would warrant it, I don't know, good to go up 8%, that's all.
There's some claims,
It's just, but it's
I do
safe.
think, yeah,
I mean,
it's safe,
it's
because
safer.
we're young.
Do they base it on the health of the individuals?
Yeah.
Anything that's been on it too.
Number of kids helps dramatically.
Is they're healthier than their parents?
They're cheap. Kids are cheap.
The older we get.
Sure.
The more we
We're
get.
falling apart.
Okay, we gave you the expense accounts at the bottom of page 4. Then the first part is a pretty lengthy part, and that's the education fund. That's where we should be spending most of our money. The first section is elementary. Not much variation from last year to this year. Second part is secondary. Not much variation from last year to this year.
Tim, are we gonna keep, the account for the math consultant?
I recommend we do. Yeah. I think that's
I
been
thought we
money well
discussed keeping
spent.
that, keeping her, just even for conferences.
Yep. Yep. So that's secondary, page 5. Page 6, the first part is a continuation of secondary. Followed by preschool.
I guess I was curious, back up on secondary tuition reimbursements.
Yep.
Is that something new that, your numbers for the last few years, couple of years, haven't been 15, or close to 15,000, so is that anticipated that you have those secondary teachers, or is that,
Which line is it?
or is that the students?
No, this one I believe, if I can find the line,
I'm sorry,
page 5, right?
Page 5,
Yeah.
Page 5. 230, yeah.
Oh, so, yeah.
Is it 11, 13, 230?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yes, that's what, that is for courses for teachers.
Teachers.
We have, Jake's going back to school to further, to advance his degree. Lori's going back to school to advance her degree so that she can teach AP biology. Carrie Powell is going back to school so that she can get her early childhood. Jess Howard will be working on her special ed. And Virla Vanderloo will be working on her French endorsement. I think so. I think it's going to be that way for a few years, though. I think it might be
They're not picking up.
3 years, right? I think it might be 3 years at that same line. And who knows, maybe some of those people go on and try and get advanced degrees after that. I don't know. But yeah, that is what that's for.
And then contractual services, is that your recommend? And what is her name? It says it after that.
Diana Craig, who's the math consultant. That one it?
No.
Diana Craig. She
And-
should be Diane something.
We have a math consultant?
Yeah,
We do.
consults the teacher.
Teach. She's her teacher.
Okay. No, it's not one.
No, and she was here, she came.
She was working.
Yeah.
Dana.
Dana what?
Dana Cartier.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Had the right initials.
Did you have Diana, was Diana Craig here when you were?
She
in
was.
school?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I was thinking, I don't know. She did really, she's done really well.
Good.
And are we still doing the workbooks again this year?
We expanded the high school. Anything else on page 5?
The notes just explaining where we were going.
The notes explained to me that we get $25,000 in the
Oh,
in
I
the
thought that
grant.
was.
We're gonna do all supplies with that, so that's, we'll expend all those funds because it's a reimbursement. We don't spend them, yeah. Page 6. And preschool is mainly, you can see it's just teacher aid and insurance. And that is almost, you see that, I'm pretty sure that total is accurate. I need to double check my spreadsheet. But $119,000 is what it costs us to run preschool, and we get about $104,000 in grant. Yeah, so you're talking $15,000 to run 2 good preschool classrooms with a teacher and an aide. That is money well spent. And special education, bottom of page 6. Page 7 starts with Title I, and I think that's all that's in there, it's just Title I. What we do with our Title I money is we allocate the percentage of teacher aides that matches our percentage of free and reduced lunch students. So, but from a budgetary standpoint, it's 32% of our teachers' aid salaries is paid for with Title I. So that's what we use all our Title I money to do, is to defer costs of aides, which allowed us to expand the number of aides a handful of years ago. That allowed us to expand the number of aides that we absolutely have in every elementary classroom. Vocational, we have 3 top-notch vocational programs and teachers. Mr. Riggs, so we have our ag classroom, our business classroom, Ms. White, and then Ms. Neal in our Neal and Al. I don't know if I pronounced her name. Yeah, we'll call her the new Kirk for a while. Those are our 3 vocational classrooms.
Who was that?
Kelly, I think it's Nell, that's how it's pronounced. Nels.
Yeah.
Kelly Nels.
She's taking over where Kurt was.
No.
In the 1500s are interscholastic expenses. So athletics, for the most part, are there. Salaries, contractual services, officials, supplies, dues and fees. Directed as follows. Guidance follows that. Guidance is half of Zach's salary, half of Ms. Robbins' salary. We have a nurse, followed by technology. Most of our technology is supported through federal grants. Most notably the REAP grant, we have been getting $25,000 every year. And Title II and Title IV Title IV, we've been getting $10,000 the last 2 years. Title II, we're getting a little bit less this year, I think only $6,000. All told, that's about $40,000 in federal funds that we use to support the technology that we have in our building. Not many local. Curriculum and staff development section,
Well, the graduation supplies being under
diplomas.
for $2,000.
Yeah.
Just, wow. Yeah, big class stuff.
No, they're just.
Buy bulk.
That's- You know what? I think we might do that, actually.
Because we're having, well,
Yeah, I need to check that. Because it looks like we've bounced a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, it looks like it kind of goes up and down and maybe,
Yeah.
maybe a
I'll bet you're right.
or
I'll bet you
something,
does.
have to,
You have to buy a certain amount.
or something, or is it a price break or something?
Yeah. I think those are the only supplies for graduation diplomas.
Well, you've got like the carnations and,
Oh, yeah.
that they give to the parents and then the souvenirs and.
Yeah.
It's just a weird place for it right after technology. I'm just like, okay, so
Yeah.
we're getting technology diplomas.
I bet they were there before technology ever even had a spot, you know? The technology kind of infiltrated that spot. Which actually happened. Page 9 goes into, there's a section on librarian, but it's mainly Title II, Title IV. Is where we put those expenditures, which are federal funds. 2310s, treasurer, Board of Education. 2230s, is that credit superintendent. In the 2320s. In the 2320s, your increase needs to be 5% or less from 1 year to the next. Otherwise, you have to submit something to the state. So we're going to run that.
we had an issue last year.
The year before we did it.
Does the minimum wage issue affect the school?
Not really.
They are already above.
For the most part, we have some non-certs that we may have to bump, but just a small handful, because most of them are above the threshold.
In the state, as far as the teachers go, we had to be at 40,000. You were already there.
Yeah. What we've been doing I think it's the last 3 years, is we've been hiring people in at 25% minimum wage, which I think is $10.18 an hour. So anybody that hired in 3 years ago, they're getting, I haven't looked at the chart. Do you know where that grandfather's in at? Yeah. But I think we're in pretty good shape as far as we're not gonna have a big bump, and that will affect some places.
That's right, because we're on the news, is
Yeah.
municipalities and some schools and
Yep.
it's my business.
We should be in decent shape. The 2410s is principal. Page 10. 2520 is bookkeeping. $25.50s has to do with some more pre-K stuff if you just pay bus driver for pre-K routes. And the $25.60 is cafeteria.
We had maybe a little full time that you did account.
Yep. Which it doesn't really change anything.
No, it's just
Yeah.
even without the sub.
Yeah,
The
right,
sub.
right. Yep. That's something I do need to look at that. That's a good catch, Jason. I'll check with Margie. Because we might be able to lower that subline.
Yeah, because last year, accounting for maybe working part-time,
That's where she was.
yeah.
You're right. I'll check into that. $23.60s, not much there. Ed fund finishes up on the top of page 11. Special ed tuition. That's what we pay Knox One Special Ed Co-op. Vocational education. That's what we pay for kids to take GABC courses. And we've got, that's where our dual credit money goes also into that line.
You think? Because there's a lot of kids.
A big jump from year to year, so
Yeah, but you have 19,
impressive.
and you're up to 20.
Right now, as long as that federal Pell Grant stays in place for dual credit kids, I think we're sitting pretty good. We may have to adjust if that program discontinues.
So they get Pell Grant money for them taking.
I'm taking dual credit courses. So what we've mandated as part of the program is that if you're going to take dual credit courses and the district's going to pay for them, you have to complete a FAFSA. If you complete a FAFSA, in between the dual credit grant, where Carl Sandburg cuts your tuition in half, and your FAFSA grant, if that pays for all of your tuition, the district doesn't pay anything. The district only pays remaining tuition for people that don't have a Pell Grant that covers what Carl Sandburg does. Yeah.
So, there's a dual credit reimbursement back,
Which page are you on?
page 6. And the
How much is in it?
12,500.
Maybe Marty has split that.
Dual credit tuition, is that where you're at, Kathy?
Yeah, dual credit reimbursement, the bottom line before so
Gotcha.
the 690 account.
Oh,
And again, that's a pretty big jump.
Where are we at?
the other one's on page 11.
Vocational ed.
Vocational ed used to be just GABC. Yep.
So we had, what, 2 or 3 kids go this past year? No, 2.
Well, we paid for some Kirk's course.
What about the
It
AP
was
class?
cost associated with that.
Oh, yeah,
The
what about
AP.
the AP tests that we,
I don't think that goes in that line. No.
Okay.
I can have Marty pull up both of these
Yeah.
and see exactly what.
And then where would we see how much the Pell Grant?
We don't.
I would look at, I'm not volunteering, but boy, it would be an awesome study to see, especially starting with this class that just graduated. Yeah, how many credits,
Yeah.
doing the research on what we're spending as a district,
Right.
what we're getting from the Pell Grant,
Right.
how much we're saving the families.
Right.
You know what I mean? And over the course of the next 4 years, I mean, I did some soft calculations just for Harrison, and he could easily shave off a full year of college just from
Yeah.
us doing this in 1 year of dual credit classes.
So
So,
we saving me a lot, I got my whole degree.
Right.
right. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, it would be that would be a great
Yeah.
number crunching exercise if anybody's up for it.
That sounds like, Laura's husband.
Yes, ma'am.
Makes sense.
He would have a graph and the whole 9 yards for everybody to see.
Okay, anyway, so you think that AP fees and tests and that kind of stuff fall somewhere else?
I do. I don't know exactly where.
Okay.
And then right after that, the contingency of 40,
Yep.
not had anything, what do you anticipate spending that on?
Nothing, I hope. Really, I mean, as long as nothing comes in, the number one item that you always worry about financially is if you have a high needs student that moves in,
And that's what that would involve,
that's, yeah, you're
transportation or what,
typically it'd be tuition for them to, if
the,
it's a student that we couldn't service here. So that's the best use case for ed fund contingency, is unforeseen expenses associated with unforeseen students.
Were we able to use that money when we bought the,
Plus,
yeah,
yes, the bus. For,
Yeah,
Not
that's
spent
transportation.
anything in that.
We usually.
Last year, well, we don't ever associate anything with that line. You know what I mean? Wherever we spend the money, we put it.
Itemize it there.
Itemize it there. Last year, that money came in handy because we froze our own levy. So we got rid of the contingency. I mean, that just took our contingency, what it did. And we didn't have any high needs situations as far as the ed fund was concerned. Last year, our biggest unforeseen was we did need to purchase that used bus in order to transport the student who moved in during the year.
but it also serves other students as well, so it's not just for the one that one.
it's a great little bus. They have a space in the back that we transported robotics stuff.
Yeah.
For 2 times, so yeah.
And that's Adam.
He got a good
Got
deal.
a good deal on it. He did a lot of work to it, and yeah, pretty lucky there. But from a contingency standpoint, yes, I have put in 40,000 in contingency in the ed fund, 20,000 contingency in the building fund, and 10,000 contingency in transportation. With the hopes that you don't use it. So what's that total? 70.
Is this one, okay, does this help with the budget and not going over or above or below 5% or something?
Yeah.
Is that what,
That's
is that what that contingency is?
That's what it's designed to
That's for,
It's designed, it's in there so that your costs are covered if you have some unforeseen expenses. And you're not, keeps you from having to overspend based upon what you've agreed to the public that you're going to spend.
I would say you're just being transparent here. Most budgets, you probably have a big dip to each line when you see the numbers.
That happens a lot of times. The typical school budget,
Stand back in
yeah,
that.
you have the expense side of your budget and you decrease the revenue side of your budget, so then it looks like that you come in. And we've gone through, you guys have done most of the work of going through line by line. And we've done it now for 4 or 5 years.
yeah.
We've gone through line by line by line. And I feel like we're in a pretty good rhythm. And Margie does a really good job of keeping the lines consistent from year to year so that we can trend. Because I guess that's something I should have mentioned. If you look at the columns, you have, I call all these soft numbers because they came from our accounting software. I didn't take them off our AFRs. That would have been a lot more work. It was hard enough doing it this way. But yeah, FY 16, 17, 18, and 19, so 4 years worth of data to kind of compare each line and each fund.
So quick question on the school bus purchase.
Yeah.
So, you're projecting a used Bluebird, and is that like a similar full size?
It's here already.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then a used Chevy Traverse to take the place of that minivan,
That Uplander.
the Uplander.
Right now, we anticipate keeping the Uplander. I need to talk to Adam. It's been a long time since we've had this conversation. But what it does is it frees up another vehicle because we have one locked into student transportation every day. So that will either be the Traverse or the Uplander. It transports one student to Knoxville every morning and brings them back every afternoon.
Okay, Adam's feedback on any transportation,
Yeah, this was his idea.
He likes.
Okay.
Uber.
To have another, well, from a vehicle standpoint,
Yeah,
to have
Is that your
another.
question?
Where we really got into fines last year was during that heavy robotics season. You know, when we've got 2 Suburbans gone, and we've got the other vehicles transporting that student every day. So now if you had FFA going somewhere, I mean, which we did, we're trying to figure out how to get kids where and what vehicle. Because typically we've got the one locked in for student transportation every day, and we have at least one locked in for co-op sports transportation every day. Yeah, it seats the same as a Suburban
What about early bird?
and early bird. Yeah,
We'll see
we've got
that.
one goes out, one
That
goes
part.
every morning.
From the other one?
did that change any transportation costs? Because that wasn't added,
Really?
that wasn't planned, really,
Not really, if you look,
right?
yeah, if you dig into the transportation costs, and we're on page 12, if you dig into those, look at the FY19 soft numbers. So bus driver salaries was up. Extra driving was up a little bit. But look at substitute drivers,
Holy
it's
cow,
next to nothing.
yeah.
And that's, again, huge props to Adam.
Okay.
He's assembled a pretty decent team now, and he's had the makeshift here and there, where Jake might be driving something here, Brittany might be driving something, then coming back and driving something else. I may jump in there from time to time, just here, or just taking
Well, you
baseball.
might as well use that license that you have to get. Right?
I have a refresher course tomorrow night, too.
Long time, just what you wanna do. The year before, we had several health issues, right? That's really tough.
And what about, aren't we getting a truck to replace the old one?
What I propose in the budget is that we go like a Bobcat route
Oh,
and keep the truck. I can read into heads, they haven't experienced any issues.
So what was the Bobcat for? I didn't notice the purpose of the
Snow
Bobcat.
removal is the big thing. We've got to get something, we've got to do a better job of taking care of any concrete. 'Cause I hate the idea of the Kubota blade running up and down the new concrete. Because you can just see, bigger the building trades kids, this has been maybe 6 years ago, did a section of sidewalk where the bus kids walk up on the east, and there are chunks that are gone. You know, it all has to do with snow removal.
Learned a lot of that last year.
Yeah, hopefully in the months of years.
Much more than.
I can't get out May 31st.
Okay. 150 was just dizzy. I just put, there are a million little small items, I just project a 5% increase based upon whatever was there for FY. That's all IMRF and Social Security and payroll base. Fund 60, at the bottom of page 14, I have items listed out in the little table to the right. That projects that $300,000 alternate revenue bond and $30,000 paying sales tax budget. 91,950 went to the ag shop contract. South entrance is 122,900. Playground fence is an estimate right now. That's the one big item I've got to get locked in and scheduled so that we get that in. It won't be in, I doubt, by the time school starts. But hopefully we won't have to go without it very long. And then on the last page, page 50, is just tort fund 80. I was very conservative on those increases because I will shop that around this year. I feel like we paid more than we needed to last year. It's the 1 year in the last few that I haven't figured out.
So you went down in insurance premium?
That's what I'm projecting.
Well, we had a huge increase last year.
If you look at FY18, FY18, our insurance premium, which is 80-2364-380, we went from $21,720 to $32,687.
Yeah.
We didn't have any claims or anything, right?
Not to justify that. We did have a claim.
We didn't have any claims this year that will show up when they do it. If we're bidding it out, they're going to.
Yeah.
Look. I'm just curious. I'm just
I don't
gonna,
think
matter.
there's anything.
But I'm just trying to
Yeah.
figure out what it is. That's a disappointing impact. Something about that if they have?
It might be, but I hope not. We've had success when we have figured it out. When we haven't figured it out, I felt like we've made significant.
Who's your insurance with now?
It is with, got a gavel where Jeremy.
Okay, where he was.
Jorge, yeah,
Okay.
that's the agent.
Yeah. No, I know. No, there's plenty of insurance agents around here, glad to.
Yeah.
Did it for you?
All right, so that is the budget. Look through my notes and summarize the things that I'll check on. Tuition reimbursed, I will double check tuition reimbursement when I'm at that too, to make sure I've got enough for them. We'll get clarification on dual credit and vocational. I'll double check the Nadine effect. That's it.
I just have one question on the issuance of bonds.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that, and so I don't know if I'm on the agenda or whatever, but
Yep, you're good.
you're going to invest the extra in a CD. You projected 2 to 2.5% interest. Is that for 1 year?
It depends on when we would get the money. I think we would put it in chunks,
Maybe you would have
you know what I mean?
It's pledged if you had anything over 250.
We want to we'll look back at the health life safety study to make sure that we have enough available at July 1st, 2020. When a lot of those payments are going to come due for the HVAC project. And then we'll cycle the other so that it's not available. If people will let us put it out longer and give us a better rate, we probably won't need it until July 1st, 2021.
I'm sure there's specials out there. We don't have any.
Dang it.
I don't know specials. I'm just gonna look at Farmington and see what they have.
Chad just, Zach Chatterton over at Farmington, they just did a big issue. That's who I'm going to lean on for guidance on. And he did a good job of marketing it and getting some figures from 3 different firms.
Yeah, Dr. Reiner said that their probably gonna do part of phase 3. So we were talking at the end of the day about.
When does he issue bonds for a summer project?
I don't know how the money is for that. I don't know.
Yeah. That's right now what I would recommend is that we issue as early in the fall as we can. You know, all of our ducks in a row, there's the whole several month process that has to take place. That way we can invest a greater chunk of it for a greater period of time. Ideally, at least that first chunk we can get in for 9 months before we have to pay contractors for the HVAC.
Can I ask a question? Will we be paying part of the $300,000 that we're going to be paying for the bonds issued? Will we be paying part of that this year? And where is that?
Where is that? Bond interest? It's interest fund 30.
Got it, interest on bonds, okay.
So you have 2 lines, yeah, you've got the interest and then you've got the repayment, which is basically kind of self-explanatory. And in the notes off to the side, the full, not just the $300,000 plus what was folded in the previous issues will be paid off in FY27. So December 2026. Those numbers will look pretty much the same for the next 6 fiscal years after that.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Last
I was
year will
double.
be lower.
So-
One payment. So a decision that would face the future board is when, and depending on the direction you take with the 5-year capital improvement plan and all of that, my recommendation would be that alternate revenue, whether they be penny sales tax funds or alternate revenue bonds, be utilized at the next time that they're readily available for parking lot. Knock on wood, we don't need it for other capital improvement. Who knows, maybe we'll need it to build a new wing to house all of our new students. Get any more kids?
So can I just ask why that's not like identified in your project plan?
It's on there, but it's not listed, you know what I mean? It's not listed with a value within the 5-year plan. 'Cause I don't think we get it done in that 5-year span. It goes out to FY25, doesn't it?
This one. I guess my thought is, if that is something, if maybe you make a C category or something, but get it on there so that it's at least a thought, that it's not overlooked, or, you know.
Yeah, it's on there.
No, this, you said alternative?
Maybe it's in the building. Yeah, it's in the building fund.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And maybe that's probably, well, you had mentioned it.
Yeah, it's listed.
Revenue bonds, so I guess that's in this.
The bottom half of the building fund, which are listed as Cs, they don't have values attached to them. Employee parking lot, west entrance, north parking lot and walkways, softball field lights, baseball field lights, window replacement for the 81, 82 building, any sewer system repairs may need to be made in their auditorium. So like baseball field lights in auditorium are wish list items, you know, that I just want to make sure that remain on there.
put on the schedule, we don't have value.
How much do you think the parking lot would cost?
If I look back at the numbers that I deleted, which were relatively not fact-based, they were just guesses, like $200,000 and $100,000.
So do it in phases or something.
Well, I would get, I mean, this is total $100,000 for the small lot.
Like, I thought
That's
that
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
There's drawing.
it was going, and
Yeah.
then,
And then there was some weather or something.
I don't remember what happened, and it just went.
Change in administration.
I mean, it really was.
No, yeah,
It
it
was
was
about a year before she left.
Yeah, it was
happened,
happening.
and then. I do not remember what.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, I want to say there was some weather, something, and then it delayed it, and then I think it just got off the table somehow.
But there are drawings.
something else came up. Something else came up, and
There was definitely something.
Did you think 100,000?
I don't know.
I think it's probably more than that.
Probably right.
for that,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, 300,000, you know, for the $500,000.
Just for blacktop. Nothing for the students. Well, they can park on it, I
Yeah,
guess,
park on it.
when they're 16, for 2 years.
Okay,
I know it's hard to see, but man, love that blacktop. That's a lot of money to put into something that's money.
that was my thought,
Helping in
like
education.
walking around and seeing so many other things that I thought we needed. And it's very visible, it looks really nice
Yeah.
from the outside. But that's the only value it adds. You know, at that time, our kitchen was terrible. We didn't even have coolers that worked. Our roof still leaked and had for 30 years.
Buckets.
You could go on and on.
Yeah.
All right.
To have a motion then, you need to do that one, or any changes to that?
Yeah, anybody, if you look at the potential motion on the back side of the page, any adjustments? Others would like to see or discuss? Any hesitation in doing the levy and the budget at the same time?
When you first said that, I didn't like the idea, I guess that's just old school, but. You said that maybe doesn't really change that much.
The projection stays pretty consistent. August and December.
And I think nowhere did anybody anticipate a negative multiplier in Oakland. Is that, have you talked to anybody about that? I mean, that,
I think it's too early for them to project that out. What I understood from what the assessor's office has told me is they take their numbers, which are the numbers that they give me, and then they plug them into the state program or whatever. And then the state program calculates everything statewide and kicks back any negative multipliers that they have to implement as well. So, I think they work hard and they're short staffed. It's kind of what happens, so they do the best that they can with what they've got, and sometimes it just isn't as accurate as what they would like it to be. You know, in the old days, those numbers would just stand.
right. Well, help me this year. I did less than property. I don't know how you feel, but
First got reassessed, so I might be part of that.
Thanks a lot. As soon as you guys moved out, no property values.
yeah, And I don't say anything when people are saying, oh, my taxes went up, my taxes went up. We're not getting into that.
No, I think it'd be more efficient to do them at the same time and use the same numbers to avoid it not supporting each other.
Any hesitation with the 2.5 million health life safety bond issue?
That was our plan all along, wasn't it? I don't think that we had disagreement.
I think we can all do a check afterwards. Yeah.
You can go tell all your friends now, Molly, that you're gonna have air conditioning in the school.
You were in one meeting and I got us air conditioning.
Is the gym gonna have air?
That's still to be determined.
I
whether
think it
they
should.
That's our one vote.
I'll write that down.
It does need to have some type of better
It needs
ventilation,
something.
airflow system,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because it is stagnant, it's stagnant, and I can't think of another gym that we've been in that has been as bad
I agree.
as that. You know, on the flip side, sitting through one musical play,
Oh,
oh my gosh, I froze. Like there was something, I don't know, that they turned off so that, oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you can't hear.
Yeah, when,
Ears are red.
yeah, and I literally, yeah. Oh, I froze, I couldn't even enjoy it, so excuse me.
So we've got this whole script for graduations too, where we turn off this exhaust fan at this time so that people can hear the ceremony.
But not too soon.
Yeah, not too soon. We only, if you notice, we only have a certain amount of lights on. So it doesn't get too hot. And still, I end up.
Strategic,
I'm best with your
Yeah.
Good
Air
one.
conditioning gym rooms, fix all our problems.
I've got it written down. Okay. Guess we could go through them. So the potential motion would be, number one, send the 5-year capital improvement plan to the facilities committee with the following financial guidance and budgetary constraints, and authorize the facilities committee to forward the 5-year capital improvement plan to the full board for approval upon completion of their work. Plan approval includes approval of tentative school tax levies constructed to support the plan. Now, that being said, you still would approve tentative tax levies each and every year. All you approve within the plan is the framework. And then everything the levies get adjusted as the new information comes in. So the financial constraints or financial guidance and budgetary constraints. A, schedule health life safety projects during the summers of 2020 and 2021. B, schedule alternate revenue projects using an FY20 budget of $330,000 and a $30,000 annual budget for each following year. C, schedule building fund projects using a $50,000 annual budget. Knowing that the facilities committee may move things over and say, no, we'd like to use $100,000 here and not do anything that year, so on and so forth. The message it would take to them was you cannot exceed the budgetary allowance.
You don't foresee a joint committee meeting of sorts, but we are welcome to go and sit in on their conversation.
Yep.
Right, okay, because I know at one point, I think you suggested that we didn't do a joint meeting.
It's hard getting that big together. But yeah, more than welcome.
But can we just have a meeting, you can listen. Sorry about that whole conversation in my head.
The second part of the motion would be to recommend the board issue 2.5 million health life safety bonds this fall for completion of work listed in the 10-year health life safety study. Third, to recommend the tentative FY20 budget for board approval. And forth to recommend the tentative 2019 school tax levy for board approval. I'll pull the levy back up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say whether that was.
This year would be the big jump, because that $575,000 bond payment would go on. If you look at the following year, 2.45% increase, should be pretty consistent, 2.46, 2.47, 2.48. The reason it's above 2 is because we budget in 3% increases in the funds that match payroll. And hopefully that absorbs whatever health insurance increase there is as well. Right now, we have 2.75 increase this year and next contractual.
Say that again.
2.75% increase.
Right,
this year.
okay, so different.
And that's really, when you talk about next negotiations, a big benefit to getting into CIE is you have more, the district feels a lot better knowing that health insurance costs are contained from year to year to year to year.
Instead of a potential 15% jump or 20% jump or whatever, yeah. Again,
Well, we don't all, you know, you never know.
come on board.
Come on, buddy.
Because you've tried, how many years?
This will be 4, I think. This is 4.
And how do they determine who goes and who stays?
It's based upon how good the group looks to their group. They don't want to take on people that are going to make their group go down.
As far as.
They have to protect the people that are already in their group, which I understand.
Okay, so this is what?
And to articulate that to taxpayers too, if you factor out the bond payment, which is 62 cents, you're looking at $4.18.
So somebody who, so somebody asked me if they've got $150,000 house, $150,000 for your EAV, what's our increase gonna be between the 4.14 to the 4.8? How much more just for the school side of things? I know there's other things that go into your tax bill, just on the school side of things.
Everything else remaining even, it would just take whatever they paid in school tax and add 18.26%.
Okay,
Everything else is equal. That's,
because we don't have any control over what everything else is. Okay.
make sure they just do that to their school tax only.
Yes.
And basically, that's what you would be paying for the health, life, safety. That's your share of the air conditioning and the roof and the accessibility. Whatever that equates to.
There's no way to even that out a little bit. I mean, just because that $575,000 jump, there's no way
To reduce other funds?
to soften that 18% blow.
The only way you do is reducing other funds.
You gotta make that change.
You gotta make that.
You gotta make that change.
I mean, is there a sense it should be a potential of, I mean, I know we just went through line by line on the budget, but, you know.
Yeah, potential. So here's what I look at for potential. From my perspective, IMRF, tort, those are the two big ones. Bonds and interest. IMRF / Social Security and tort. You can end those $5,000 in those accounts every year. And I think that's because you're going to levy for whatever you need the following year. Those accounts can be in the negative a little bit too. Because they're not really, I mean, you look at IMRF and Social Security combined, you spend $193,000 a year. Tort, you spend about $65,000. You know what I mean? So do you need an ending balance of $42,000 in a fund that you only spend $65,000 in?
How would that help that 18%? Any idea what that help your?
It would drop it just a tad.
Just
15%? Did you count it 15%?
I mean,
I mean, that's, when I see 18%, I tell people, it's a 20% tax increase. You know, I mean, that's what they're gonna look at. 15% sounds better than.
But just tell them it's just on the school, it's not
Right.
on the school part
Right.
of their taxes.
That seems to be the thing that
Not that
gets the most
everybody's gonna
attention.
count it. It is.
Oh,
I want to
well,
see.
it's the biggest thing on there. How much you pay for other services.
Yeah,
so if you want to end that at 5, you'll get rid of $36,000. And at $4.76, you know, you're still at 17.
I was just throwing it out there. If there was
Yeah,
any
no.
place that we could.
Tort, what did I say, tort?
that's a good, I mean, it's good to look at those, and, you know, they can end with $5,000. You're getting there,
I mean, real quick,
you're getting there.
that leaves you tort and Social Security / IMRF right around $5,000 unbalanced. Puts the rate at 472.
And could you run those funds pretty consistently for, let's say, until, you know, the bonds are paid off for the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't change any of the projections in the following years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're
And
still
then those
2%
fund balances
increase for
grow.
tort. You would estimate those fund balances ending at $5,000 every
See,
year.
then the next year, he's got it at 103,000, see, he's already got the 3% in there, it's for Social Security.
Yeah, so how, would that affect days of cash on hand?
I don't think those are factored in, are they, Nancy? I don't think Social Security and IMRF are, I think it's just the building fund, or just the operating fund.
Oh, we might have it in there. Okay, okay.
It'll just affect overall fund balance.
Then that wouldn't have any impact on school financial ratings or anything like that.
Shouldn't.
Okay, okay.
I mean, debt to expenditures ratio is one of the things on there.
But to answer her question, that's what the other board members in the past have wanted to do, is reduce that increase, and so they use cash on hand, and they use reserves and reduce cash on hand, and in order to,
It
in order to not
probably would.
In order to
increase
not
that.
raise the tax rate.
Right.
So what was that? 480?
Well, you were at 480, now you're 472,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you were down to 16-something%.
Mm-hmm. Almost 2%.
Yeah, yeah, 15.3 and you were at 18.26.
I could look at that.
That sounds better. Yeah. What do you think, Jennifer?
I think that's good.
Jolie? April?
Good.
Good.
Sounds good to you.
As long as you get air in the gym, right?
It probably won't happen in your, well, it could potentially happen in your lifetime.
Senior season, air
Senior season.
Graduation. Yeah.
Cool.
Let me make those adjustments real quick on the.
That's really not gonna change any of the recommendations here, though.
No.
Well, it's recommended since the school transfer.
Right, that he's already got, yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to another sheet now. Oh, yeah. This is what I didn't factor in. That splits over 2 years. I might be able to do more.
It's looking better by the minute. How is that split over 2 years?
The levy split over 2 years. You know what I mean? So anything that we cut back, that cutback is split over 2 years, so we might be able to double the cutback.
I'm gonna get down to Kathy's 15%.
You may have.
That drive you batty? Having a million over?
No, you should see that.
Is that? It's bad.
It's bad.
Thinking you don't want to lower it too much. I need to, because we're only going to incrementally, if we stick with that system where we increase it only 3% or 2% a year, we can't lose too much in that fund in year one, because then you won't make it up.
Oh, because it's all gonna show that it's gonna come out in year one.
Right.
Instead of split between the 2 years. I see what you're saying.
If you lose in that fund, if you lose $40,000 this year, and then you only increase that revenue by 2% or 3% next year, you're going to continue.
So how much of the 18% is because of what happened in last December?
That's a good, I mean, it is some. I forget how much
Which is
it was
what?
like 83,000.
Which is
Yeah.
what, if you can kind of put a percentage on that, that would help when you're talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain, why.
Yeah, don't forget that a lot of people paid less this year than they did last year. It doesn't make me feel any better about this year.
Yeah, that's good, that's good news.
Let's keep thinking this through. If the early tax money would have come in on time, this would be a heck of a lot easier. Because the 122,000 surplus in IMRF Social Security isn't real.
Because that number would be. It'd be lower. So, I know you guys are meeting again Monday night, I would be able to be here Monday night, but.
Yeah, let me work-
I was gonna say,
yeah,
we've had time
work on
between
that.
now and Monday to, like,
To figure how that's all
Yeah.
gonna work.
and to see if it. And then you can tell them that we worked down from 18% to 11%.
You guys want to recommend everything except for the last one tonight? Then I'll work on that, and that will be item of discussion Monday night.
Because that really only affects number 4. You want to make the motion? Okay. I move the following. We send the 5-year capital improvement plan to the facilities committee with the following financial guidance and budgetary constraints, and authorize the facilities committee to forward the 5-year capital improvement plan to the full Board of Education for approval upon completion of their work. Plan approval includes approval of tentative school tax levies constructed to support the plan. Schedule health life safety projects during the summers of 2020 and 2021. Schedule alternate revenue projects using and fiscal year 20 budget of $330,000 and a $30,000 annual budget for each following year. Schedule building fund projects using a $50,000 annual budget. Recommend the Board of Education issue $2.5 million of health life safety bonds this fall for completion of work listed in our 10-year health life safety study. Recommend the tentative fiscal year 20 budget for Board of Education approval.
Second. All in favor?
Then on the budget worksheet and the levy tab of the capital improvement plan, the cells that I'll put the cells in yellow. And I'm working on. My goal is to project the levies out so that we end those two funds with $5,000. So.
Can I ask you one more question? I'm sorry. Okay, what is the work, could you just show us again the work that's scheduled for next summer? Not next summer, the next summer, 21.
Health, life, safety would be center roof, gym roof,
So,
tuck pointing, replace deteriorated door closures and hinges, and doors where they're needed, and remove existing exterior wall and replace with new exterior wall. And in the south side middle school.
so question. Is it worth it financially to issue 1.5 million this year in bonds and $1 million in bonds next year?
I think that's a different approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Like, how much would we be saving in a 1 year difference? So it'd be 4% of the million difference.
There's a lot of very.
Right, that's, yeah, and I wouldn't know what that projection would look like. You know, what's the benefit of doing the full 2.5 million this, in one chunk, as opposed to 2 chunks?
From a cost standpoint, I don't know exactly what that monetary value would be. I don't know if we'd be money ahead or money
Okay.
behind.
Okay, but it also, that could soften that percent over a 2-year time period.
That would be the net effect on the levy. If you did an October 2019 issue and an October 2021 issue, then you wouldn't get up to the 575
Right,
repayment.
right.
Now, what you would do though is defer. So you pay back, you have another year
Right.
in which you would be paying.
It was just, it was,
Yeah.
and it didn't on top of my head until Teresa was reading it, but it was like, yeah, 20 and 21, and then I forgot what those numbers,
What the value
what the value of the second year looked like compared to the first year. But I mean, it's about 1.5 million that first summer and $1 million the second summer.
And there's cost reductions,
And John said earlier, the volatility of the interest rates. I think everything's going up, but, I mean, nobody thought interest rates were going down this year,
Right.
they're at the beginning of the year, so.
election.
I was gonna say, there's nothing politically that would happen before that, I don't think.
Yeah.
It would be a year, but it wouldn't
But
happen until
we
next
were,
year.
yes.
The percentage of risk would be in favor of potential interest hike rather than further interest drop. I don't think, not, but again, like Jen said, we can't, nobody thought this was gonna happen. But I think the same amount of people think there's not a very good chance it'll drop again.
Is there an exorbitant amount of fees?
That's the one thing, it sounded like
There's quite a bit in processing fees.
There's
a lot of work.
Seek processing to bond, which would cost to cross the bond.
those are.
Why not?
I just didn't know what those were.
Yeah,
No, I don't know.
a lot of times you get a less favorable rate for 1.5 than you would for 2.5, which means you'll get a less favorable rate for 1 than you would for 1.5.
Well, I think if there is pushback, that could be something to look into. That, you know, I mean, you crunch the numbers for, obviously, for the, you know, the towards I, the IMRF and Social Security funds and see if that helps that percent. But if there's another potential,
That'd be my recommendation.
My recommendation is we adjust those and we make one issue.
And you're gonna look that out, so it'll.
Technically, you guys have already recommended.
I know, I'm sorry, I just, that, it hit me when she was reading it.
Did you say stop? It doesn't hurt that much.
See, I'll shut up.
I feel like we talked about that at the last meeting though, and then we agreed that this was,
The one issue
was the one issue.
Yeah, I think so too.
The last meeting we discussed it, because we were discussing different options.
Yeah, that seemed like this was the best way to go. Just the one issue.
We invested in money, yeah. Keep going. I'm sure. I mean.
Make a motion that we adjourn?
Second.
You're taking good notes, right?
I got them, yeah.
Thank you.
She's doing double duty.
Not that it was too hard, because it was Teresa in April, Teresa in April.
Uh-huh.
Oh.